The Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privilege of the floor will kindly retire to the gallery. The senators and all in attendance will please stand and be led in prayer by the Reverend James Pugh, Calvary Baptist Church, Virginia Beach. Reverend Pugh, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Let us pray. Jehovah God, we thank you for the great Commonwealth of Virginia and the senators of this Commonwealth. We thank you for the grace and the mercy that you have given to us this past week, for you are truly the God of this Commonwealth. We come before you today as your people, asking blessings upon your public servants here in the Virginia Senate. We come boldly asking for wisdom and knowledge to carry out the business of the people of the Commonwealth here in this great chamber. I personally ask you to bless each and every senator as one of your under-shepherds. We pray this. Amen.
Amen. The clerk will call the roll. All those present will vote aye. The clerk will close the roll.
You have a quorum, Mr. President. Senate Journal for Thursday, January 21st, 2016.
The senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove, moves that the reading of the journal be waived. All in favor of waiving the reading of the journal will record their votes. Aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 33, noes 5.
Ayes 33, noes 5. The reading of the journal is waived. The clerk will please report any communications from the House of Delegates. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I respectfully move that we waive the reading of any communications received from the House of Delegates, sir.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the reading of the communication be waived? All in favor of waiving the reading of the communication will record their votes. Aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 37, noes 1.
Ayes 37, noes 1. The reading of the communication is waived. The clerk will please report any communications from the governor.
We do not have any, sir.
The time has come to welcome visitors to the gallery and take up other matters of the morning hour. The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope you give a warm welcome to the pastor that gave our opening prayer this morning, the Reverend James Pugh. If you said the Reverend James Pugh to his congregation, I don't think anybody would know who it was, but if you said Pastor Bubba, everybody would know who it is. And Mr. President, he has really taken Calvary Baptist Church from something that was going to fail to one of the most vibrant Baptist churches that we have in the city of Virginia Beach. He's increased the congregation. His church is the #1 giver of these Christmas gifts. They put together Christmas packages that are sent all over the world. The #1 church in the Hampton Roads area has done that. If you need a pumpkin, come on by. He has a pumpkin patch every year, and the rest of the pumpkins he doesn't sell are donated to charity, and just some wonderful things he's done. He's accompanied today by Reverend Dennis Walker and Reverend Mark Carmen. They're his associate pastors, and as Reverend Bubba will tell you, he's the safest reverend in the church because both of his associate pastors are Special Forces trained and former Special Forces. So, Mr. President, I ask you to give him a warm welcome to the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would the Reverend James Bubba Pugh and your guests please rise? Thank you, sir. I enjoyed visiting with you before we started this morning. I thank you all for making the trip up through a little bit of inclement weather, although things back our way weren't quite as bad, but appreciate you being here today to get us off on a good foot for the week. I'd ask members of the Senate to please join me in offering Reverend James Pugh and his guests the warm welcome of the Senate. Senior Senator from Virginia Beach, was there another introduction? I've got a sheet for you.
Thank you, Mr. President. We also have visiting from the Hampton Roads area today, a group from the Hampton Roads Public Transportation Alliance. This is a group of of both private citizen members as well as those that are employed by HRT that support and develop and come up and lobby on behalf of the mass transit organizations all over the Commonwealth, but particularly here in Hampton Roads. And I ask that you give them a warm welcome to the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would members from the Hampton Roads Public Transportation Alliance please rise? You have a great group here this morning. Thank you all for making time today. And again, thanks for all that you do. I know it's kind of a busy weekend for folks that are trying to get people from point A to point B. So we appreciate all your efforts. And thank you for being here. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from the Hampton Roads Public Transportation Alliance the warm welcome of the Senate. Is there any other business to come for the senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to ask that the Senate Journal reflect that my seatmate is away from the Capitol today on pressing personal business. And I think it's inches and inches and inches of pressing personal business that are keeping him from the Senate today. And also, I would like to rise for purposes of an introduction.
Yes, if we could, the Journal will reflect that the senior senator from Loudoun is away from the Capitol on pressing personal business. Senator from Fauquier.
And I would also like to say I hope that he makes it later today. Mr. President, I rise for purposes of an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
I am delighted that in the gallery today, I have one of the members of the Senate Page program, Lily Gable, who came with me this morning. I understand that the Pages had an extra day and a little bit of extra time to get here. And Lily, I don't believe, has been in the gallery yet. And so we had a pleasant drive this morning, harrowing but pleasant. And then I know it is not appropriate to actually recognize someone who is part of your own family, but Lily is here with a part of my family that was not able to be deposited somewhere on the ride here. There are little Vogels in places all along the side of the road between my home and Richmond, some who are snowed in and some who are not. But one little Vogel is also sitting in the gallery with Lily. And so hopefully it will not be too much of a disruption. But luckily for me, I have a Senate Page who doesn't have to report to duty until later today. So thank you, Mr. President. And if you would please give Lily Gable the warm welcome of the Senate and that other little Vogel there. Thank you.
Senator, does little Vogel have a name?
It's Olivia, and she's
Olivia.
3.
All right. Would Lily and Olivia please rise? Thank you for being here. What a precious young lady she is, and I appreciate you helping to take great care of her. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Lily Gable and Olivia Vogel the warm welcome of the Senate. Madam Clerk.
Friday, if you remember, at 3 o'clock was the last time to introduce bills, and we understand that there were some people who had some difficulty. If those people would please recognize themselves and let us understand why you were unable to get your legislation in by 3 o'clock on Friday. If you will just push your button so you can be recognized.
The junior senator from Henrico, Senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My challenge was an electronic glitch, and I have looked at that and figured out it was all operator-oriented, and I'm working to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Senator from Southeastern Fairfax County, Senator
I must confess, ours was not electronic. Ours was a misunderstanding as to who was going to be hitting the send button. So,
thank you, Senator. The Senator from Alexandria, Senator Evans.
Thank you, Mr. President. My bill, which was submitted just an hour or two late, we had a miscommunication in my office about who was hitting the send button as well.
Mr. President, I rise for an explanation.
Yes, sir. We were waiting, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Some of the legislation came back right at the last minute, and I'm otherwise advising myself as my own attorney not to state any reason why I didn't file it on time, so I apologize.
Thank you, Senator.
Unanimous consent. Did you make the motion?
Mr. President,
From Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, in order for any of those items of legislation to be introduced, it would require unanimous consent of the body, thus meaning no objections from any member. I don't know if each of those 4 members have their legislation with them today, so maybe we should do that all at the same time. If they would all have it with them tomorrow, we can take.
Is that okay, Madam Clerk?
Would
Have the unanimous consent. We just need to vote on them, whether
Okay.
you want to do that today or tomorrow.
we can do that today, and then they can give them to the clerk. Oh, they're already in. So we can have, Mr. President, I would move unanimous consent to allow the introduction of piece of legislation from Senator Barker, Senator Eben, Senator Donovan, and 3 from Senator Donovan and 1 from Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate grant unanimous consent to introduce the bills as described by the senators and reiterated by the senator from Hanover? All in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Always quiet. That's good. The ayes have it. The consent of the Senate is granted to introduce the bills. Is there any other business to come for the morning hour? The clerk will please call the calendar.
Senate calendar for Monday, January 25th, 2016. Uncontested calendar, Senate bills on third reading.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would now move that all Senate bills on the third reading on pages 1 and 2 of the calendar, which would include all Senate bills from Senate Bill 24 through Senate Bill 374, be placed on their final passage in the block, with the understanding that any senator who desires to remove a bill from the block will please do so after the clerk has read the number of that bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate bills on the uncontested calendar, third reading, pages 1 through 2, Senate Bill 24 through Senate Bill 374, be placed upon their final passage in the block, with the understanding that any senator desiring a bill removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The bills are before us in the block. The clerk will please read the number of the bills.
Senate Bill 24.
Mr. President.
Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate Bill 24 be re-referred to the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the bill be re-referred to the Committee on Finance?
It's got to come out of the block, and then we'll come back and re-refer it.
Senator, if you could make a motion that it come out of the block.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd make that motion, Senate Bill 24 come out of the block.
Without objection, Senate Bill 24 will come out of the block.
Senate Bill 38, Senate Bill 192, Senate Bill 209, Senate Bill 374.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The question is, shall the bills in the block pass with the exception of Senate Bill 24? All in favor of passage of the bills will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, no 0.
Ayes 39, no 0. The bills in the block pass. The senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry about the mix-up there. I would again renew that Senate Bill 24 be re-referred to the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the bill be re-referred to the Committee on Finance? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is re-referred to the Committee on Finance.
Regular calendar, Senate bills on third reading. Senate Bill 11, a bill relating to sex offender and crimes against minors registry, publication of registrant's employer information.
Senator from Northern Fairfax County, Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill pass.
Senator has the floor.
And speaking to the bill, as I'm sure you all know, for many years we've had a sex offender registry in Virginia that is compliant with federal regulations. When we first got into whether or not to do sex offender registry, the Crime Commission did a 2-year study on the issue, and I chaired that study for 2 years. I am a firm believer in the sex offender registry. But the reason it took 2 years to figure out exactly how we were going to do it was that it's complicated because you have to balance the rights of the public to know who is a dangerous person with the ability of that person to move forward with their lives and be a responsible member of society. I feel in one small way we've gone a little bit too far, and that is currently what is happening is when a former sex offender gets a job, the name and address of that person's employer is publicly made available. As you can imagine, many employers view this as a real detriment to their business, and they are reluctant to hire former sex offenders. What this bill does, as it's been amended, is to say that both those pieces of information, both the address and the name of the business, will be available to law enforcement, but only the address of the business will be available to the public. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Buckingham, Senator Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking in opposition to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I take gentle exception with the characterization that in one small way, quote, we've gone just a little bit too far. I'm trying to fathom a circumstance in which I could go just a little bit too far to protect my children. And I'm not coming up with one. When we hear about sympathy for people who have committed sexual crimes, and particularly for people who have committed sexual crimes against the weakest among us, our children, I take pause. I'm a big believer in second chances, Mr. President, and I can assure you that there are things that I've done in my life that I regret, that I wish I had back. But I'm not a threat to anyone's children. And so while I believe in second chances, I'm not terribly sure I believe in second chances for people who are a threat to my own. When we hear about ban the box, it strikes me that all work isn't state work. There are jobs people can get. When we hear about backing off of restrictions against child predators working conceivably in the proximity of our children, it strikes me that all work isn't work that might be around children. It harkens me back to a time as a prosecutor when we had a case where literally a little boy, 7 years old, went into a public restroom and a man followed him in and sexually assaulted him. And so the reason I believe that it makes sense that we let people know not just the name of the employer but the address is so that parents who are diligent can take steps to protect their children against just such a circumstance. I don't think I want to go to the Chuck E. Cheese where the dishwasher in the back has been convicted of having sexually aggressed against a child. And I sure ain't taking my child with me. As it relates to the federal regulations and compliance therewith, candidly, Mr. President, with regard and respect to the decorum of the Senate, I couldn't care less. I don't care what the feds say we have to do. And if we go just a little bit farther in protecting our children in Virginia than the federal government mandates, that only confirms my suspicion yet again that Virginia is a whole lot better run than the federal government. I ask you to consider the reason This regulation existed in the first place, and that was to arm parents with the ability to make decisions with which they might protect their children. Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask you to vote no.
Fairfax County Senator Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of the measure.
Senator has the floor.
We have a safeguard put in place, which is civil commitment. When we sentence someone to the penitentiary for disciplinary purposes, for rehabilitative purposes, we have a safeguard in place that says maybe if they're not ready to return to society at that point in time, we can exercise our right to have them civilly committed. And that is a safeguard in place. But once they get out into the community, I believe we have some obligation to ensure that they have a reasonable opportunity at success. And having employers shut them off simply because of the nature of their offense makes it more difficult and is more likely to put pressure on people to reoffend. And so I think we do have a safeguard in place through civil commitment, and I would ask that we support the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall Senate Bill 11 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 22, noes 17.
Ayes 22, noes 17. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 179, a bill relating to the Small Business Investment Grant Fund Administration qualifications.
Senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the bill pass.
Senator has the floor.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, the Senate Bill 179 changes the administration of the Small Business Investment Grant Fund from the Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity to the Virginia Small Business Financing Authority. That's basically what the bill does.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall Senate Bill 179 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 34, noes 5.
Ayes 34, noes 5. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 229, a bill relating to purchase of flags of the United States of America and the Commonwealth of Virginia by public bodies.
The senior senator from Enrico, Senator McEachin.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. And speaking to the bill,
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, what this bill simply says is that for the Commonwealth of Virginia or any public body in Virginia, if they purchase a flag from the state of Virginia, of the state of Virginia or a United States flag, it must be purchased, if possible, from a facility located in the Commonwealth of Virginia. There happens to be such a facility, and as you see, the senator from Franklin County is saluting me right now. It is in his district, and I hope it will be the pleasure of the Senate, notwithstanding the location of the facility, to pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall Senate Bill 229 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 37, noes 1.
Ayes 37, noes 1. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 305, a bill to require the Department of Professional and Occupational Regulation to provide certain notices in English and Spanish regarding the handling of asbestos.
Senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill pass.
Senator has the floor.
Explaining the bill, we have passed for the last 4 years unanimously a more comprehensive asbestos safety bill. Last year, when Delegate Farrell and I introduced it, it was referred to the Housing Commission, which has reviewed and approved the language that we have before us. The bill provides a notice to licensed asbestos remediators in both English and Spanish, emphasizing the most basic safety precautions and describing how to report a violation. Many of the asbestos workers, if not most, do not speak English as their first language, so this just helps remind them of some life-saving precautions that they can take. Again, I move the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall Senate Bill 305 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 27, noes 12.
Ayes 27, noes 12. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 335, a bill relating to public employment, inquiries by state agencies and localities regarding criminal convictions, charges, and arrest.
The senator from Petersburg, Senator Dance.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the bill pass, and speaking to the bill,
Senator has the floor.
Senate Bill 335 is a bill that would prohibit state agencies from including on any employment application a question inquiring whether the prospective employee has ever been arrested or charged with or convicted of any crime subject to certain exceptions. Localities may, and the word is may, adopt this if they so choose to do so.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall Senate Bill 335 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 23, noes 15.
Ayes 23, noes 15. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 337, a bill relating to the Department of Veterans Services, Virginia War Memorial Division, names and homes of record designation for Virginians killed in action.
Senator from Newport News, Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill pass. And speaking to the bill,
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, this is a simple bill that simply says when a Virginian pays the ultimate price, the name of that fallen hero will be honored at the Virginia War Memorial within 1 year of their death. You've heard the story of my constituent whose son fought valiantly in Iraq. He died on January 22nd, 2005, 11 years ago, almost to the day. His name is still waiting to be honored at the War Memorial, along with more than 300 other men and women who valiantly fought in the War on Terror. These folks should not have to wait that long to see their loved ones honored, and I would hope that as a new wall goes up, it's time for a new policy to get these names up as quickly as possible, and certainly within a year. I move the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall Senate Bill 337 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 0.
Ayes 38, noes 0. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 351, a bill relating to the Treasury Board meetings.
Senator from Bath County, Senator Deeds.
Mr. President, I move the bill pass.
Senator has the floor.
This bill simply reduces the number of meetings that the Treasury Board is required to conduct a year from 12 to 6.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall Senate Bill 351 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 447, a bill relating to employment of special counsel by the Attorney General or Governor.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I would ask that this go by for the day. And speaking to that motion,
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, this bill relates to the accountability of the Attorney General's office, specifically the circumstances under which the Attorney General may contract with outside counsel. It requires disclosures, including fee arrangements. It specifically addresses contingency fees, which, as you may imagine, with large cases, results in very large payments to outside counsel, usually not Virginia lawyers, usually lawyers from New York, Chicago, or the Gulf Coast. And what this does is it caps those contingency fees and holds them down, and caps the top at $50 million, because anything over these caps would go to state employees and to serve the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia, state troopers and teachers. And I say this because on Friday, the Attorney General's office announced a $62 million settlement with a number of banks. And on Friday, I sent a Freedom of Information request to the Attorney General's office to ask about the attorney's fees and whether this was a contingency fee arrangement. Because if the Attorney General's office has contracted to pay some Gulf Coast law firm tens of millions of dollars for a case that's settled, I think that the people of Virginia ought to know it. And I think it may inform our votes on this common sense piece of transparency legislation. So with that, Mr. President, I would ask that this go by for the day.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, Senate Bill 447 will go by for the day.
Uncontested calendar, Senate bills on second reading.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I respectfully move that all the Senate bills on the second reading on the uncontested calendar, which would include all Senate bills on pages 6 through 10, including Senate Bill 78 through Senate Bill 548, that they be engrossed in advance to the third reading in the block after the adoption of any amendments. Any senator who desires to remove a bill from the block, please do so after the clerk has read the number of that bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, show all Senate bills on second reading of the uncontested calendar on pages 6 through 10, Senate Bill 78 through Senate Bill 545 be engrossed in advance to their third reading in the block after the adoption of the amendments thereto, that any senator desiring to remove a bill from the block do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to.
Senate Bill 78, reported from the Committee on Local Government, and there are two floor amendments.
The junior senator from Loudoun, Senator Wexton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the floor amendments be waived.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the reading of the floor amendments be waived? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor amendments are waived. Junior Senator from Loudoun, Senator Wexton.
Mr. President, I move that the amendments be agreed to. And speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill allows Loudoun County and any towns located entirely within Loudoun County to use GIS maps during the course of their voluntary boundary line adjustment proceedings. However, the bill that's before you makes reference to the South Zone, and as became abundantly clear over the weekend, Loudoun is actually in the North Zone. So these amendments correct that omission.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the floor amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The floor amendments are agreed to.
Senate Bill 79, reported from the Committee on Local Government with a substitute.
The junior senator from Loudoun, Senator Wexton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
Senate Bill 99, reported from the Committee on Finance with an amendment.
Senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the amendment be agreed to.
Question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to.
Senate Bill 103, reported from the Committee on Local Government. Senate Bill 122, reported from the Committee on Local Government. Senate Bill 266, reported from the Committee on Local Government. Senate Bill 280, reported from the Committee on Local Government. Senate Bill 281, reported from the Committee on Local Government. Senate Bill 359, reported from the Committee on Finance. Senate Bill 366, reported from the Committee on Finance with a substitute.
The senator from Russell County, Senator Chafin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
Bill 382, reported from the Committee on Privileges and Elections. Senate Bill 407, reported from the Committee on Local Government with amendment.
The junior senator from Loudoun, Senator Wexton.
Move that, Mr. President, I move that the amendments be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to.
Senate Bill 545, reported from the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The question is, shall the Senate bills be engrossed in advance to the third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills are engrossed in advance to their third reading.
Regular calendar, Senate bills on second reading. Senate Bill 208, a bill relating to the statewide fire prevention code, state fire marshal, consumer fireworks penalties. Reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology.
Senator from Buckingham, Senator Garrett.
Can that bill go by for the day, please?
Without objection, Senate Bill 208 will go by for the day.
Senate Bill 43, a bill relating to time of municipal elections, reported from the Committee on Privileges and Elections.
The senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico.
I move the amendments.
Oh, engross and pass on to third reading.
Senator. The question is, should the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 56, a bill relating to cutting of grass, weeds, and other foreign growth, reported from the Committee on Local Government with amendments.
Senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Mr. President, I move that the amendments be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to. The senator from Hampton.
Mr. President, I move that the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 69, a bill relating to accepted forms of voter identification, reported from the Committee on Privileges and Elections.
The junior senator from Loudoun, Senator Wexton.
Mr. President, I move that the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 361, a bill relating to use conservation ordinances, reported from the Committee on Local Government with a substitute.
The senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Mr. President, I ask that the substitute be agreed to.
Question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to. The senator from Arlington.
Mr. President, I ask that the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 420, a bill relating to voter registration, information required on application, adjudication of incapacity or felony conviction, reported for the Committee on Privileges and Elections.
Senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 446, a bill to provide for the submission to the voters of a proposed amendment to the Constitution of Virginia, adding to Article 1 a section numbered 11-A relating to the right to work.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the bill be engrossed, or the resolution be engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Uncontested calendar Senate bills on first reading.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that all the Senate bills on the first reading on both the uncontested and regular calendar, which would include all Senate bills on pages 12 through 29, including Senate Bill 4 through Senate Bill 401, that the rules of the Senate be suspended and that the first constitutional reading of the titles be dispensed with.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the first reading of the titles of Senate bills on the uncontested and regular calendars, pages 12 through 29, Senate Bill 4 through Senate Bill 401 be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The reading of the titles is dispensed with. The senator from James City County.
Mr. President, I now move that all the bills be passed by for the day, sir.
The question is, shall the Senate bills on the uncontested and regular calendars now on second reading go by for the day? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills will go by for the day.
Regular calendar, Senate Joint Resolutions on second reading. Senate Joint Resolution 1, ratifying the Equal Rights Amendment to the United States Constitution, reported from the Committee on Privileges and Elections with a substitute.
The senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Surville.
Mr. President, I'd move the resolution be engrossed and passed on to third reading.
Senator, we need to approve the substitute first.
Substitute? Okay, I'd move to approve the substitute.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to. The senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Surville.
Mr. President, I move that the resolution be engrossed and passed on to third reading.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, should the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Joint Resolution 70, proposing an amendment to the Constitution of Virginia by adding in Article 1 a section numbered 11-A relating to the right to work, reported from the Committee on Privileges and Elections.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I'd ask that this be engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
The question is, shall the resolution be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The resolution is engrossed and advanced to its third reading. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, inquiry of the clerk. Does that complete today's calendar?
Yes, sir.
Is there any other business to come before the Senate? The senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak on a point of personal privilege.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President and ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this weekend saw Winter Storm Jonas, which prior to about a week ago was a show on the Disney Channel, which I got to know very well, having 3 daughters, but will be remembered really into perpetuity for the winter storm we had. We counted, at least in my neighborhood, 30 inches on the ground, which was really a record, at least for a one-day snowfall in Northern Virginia. Right now, people are working their way out of this snowstorm. I really wanted to rise and take the floor just to recite a few statistics and mainly to thank the people that are working so hard to get us out of this storm. There are 16,000 streets in Northern Virginia. There are 48,000 lane miles statewide, secondary roads that is, and there are 9,500 contractors available to VDOT that are currently working on these streets. Also independent cities like the one I live in. We had 3 snow plows in my neighborhood this morning to get us out so people could get to their dialysis appointments, to get to their jobs, and get to emergency appointments. This effort is really underway right now, and I know the governor has spoken about trying to get all residential streets plowed by tomorrow night. I know a lot of the cities and towns are trying to get streets all plowed by tonight. Please take note that just because they're plowed doesn't necessarily mean it's safe to travel. In a lot of cases, being plowed just means one lane getting in and out. So it's going to be very difficult to get to work. It's obviously very treacherous. This is going to take literally days, if not weeks, to untangle. I think of snowstorms as being like getting your driver's license. It's the one time you really come face to face with your state government. And I will simply say that our contractors and VDOT employees have represented us very well, and I'm proud to be associated with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, first of all, I would second the sentiments expressed by the senator from Fairfax City. Living in rural Virginia, we certainly saw people from all over the place chipping in and participating in the cleanup effort to make sure that their friends and neighbors were able to get out, and I was also a beneficiary of some of those efforts. But, Mr. President, the additional reason for which I rise is that on late last week, there was a news report reported in multiple news outlets concerning ethics. Late last week, a member of the governor's cabinet was reported to have accepted an invitation to attend a Redskins game, sit in a luxury box. Very nice, and it clearly was a valuable gift extended and offered to that member of the administration, worth hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. It's not clear the number of tickets that were accepted from the news reports. And I took note of the statement from the governor's office. The governor's spokesman defended the acceptance of this gift by a member of his cabinet, saying that there was an inquiry made, presumably by the governor's office, of the staff members of the new Ethics Council, and that the governor's office was told by the Ethics Council that it was okay for members of the administration to accept the invitation. I'm not sure who made the request. I'm not sure whether others in the administration accepted the offers that were made. And I mention this not because I believe it was illegal or that the Ethics Council was wrong. I'm sure that the Ethics Council was right. However, I mention this because our friends in the media, I'm not aware that they have asked these questions about this that I think are important to ask. You know, ethics has been a topic and a subject in many political campaigns, and it was certainly a subject in the gubernatorial campaign. And in fact, it was such a priority in the gubernatorial campaign a couple of years ago that the second executive order that was signed right here behind the portico of the Capitol was the governor's executive order number 2, in which he said that no member of his administration will accept gifts in excess of $100, period, no exceptions, and that they would be held to that standard, notwithstanding other provisions of state law. I raise this because it appears that that executive order either is no longer in effect, or it's not being enforced, or people aren't asking about it. I'd like to know whether the governor's office made a determination similar to the determination that was made by the staff of the Ethics Council, that somehow this action complied with executive order number 2. Because certainly, when it comes to ethics, I think that there ought to be some level of accountability. And if the governor is going to talk about it on the campaign trail, and if he's going to include it in the second executive order that is signed on the portico of the Capitol, we ought to know whether it's still in effect, whether it's no longer in effect, and we ought to know whether the actions of this member or members of the administration are in compliance with executive order number 2. And if the answer to that is no, I think we ought to know what's been done to hold people accountable to the terms and the standards established in that executive order. I think that accountability ought to be important. And right now we're dealing with another issue of accountability, and that is the $1.4 million that disappeared following a grant that was made for economic development in Appomattox. And we heard in committee that this has many of the hallmarks of criminal conduct. Nobody called it criminal, but it sure has some of the hallmarks of it. I want to know whether the state police are looking at it. And I think that we ought to have higher standards of accountability when it comes to ethics and when it comes to the public purse. So, Mr. President, I would hope that that might stimulate some questions, some discussion, and some further inquiry. So, with that, thank the members.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Fairfax County, Senator Saslaw.
Just speaking on a point of personal privilege, and before I get to that, I'd just like to tell the senator from the Shenandoah Valley that any idea that going to that game is a gift is dispelled the minute you make that left turn on the Garrett Morgan Boulevard and sit in that traffic for about 50 minutes, okay? My wife and I are season ticket holders of club seats, and I can tell you it's not a walk in the park to get into that place. Hopefully they'll move here to Virginia, and we're going to talk more about that. But anyway, the reason that I'm up, you all saw in the newspapers last week about one of the deals made with an outfit, I think it was an outfit from China, over in Appomattox County, of $1.4 million. That apparently the company wasn't all it was cracked up to be. And that essentially the deal's not coming to fruition. There may be fraud involved. I don't know. The reason I'm up is not to be critical of them or you know, the administration or anybody else. And I'll tell you why in a second. When you make these kinds of deals, these are, as somebody described, they're venture capital type deals. In the last three administrations, as an example, and two of those administrations were the governors were from my party. 69 of those deals fell through. Now, how many of them involve the Governor's Opportunity Fund? I don't know. But the current administration, I think, has had 9 in that category. Not all of them probably involved Opportunity Fund, but they've had 9 in that category that they've announced that haven't come to fruition. Out of about 560 deals. I can tell you this, if I had that batting average on some investments I've made in my lifetime, I probably would have stayed in Hawaii. But these things happen. And I'm not, poo-pooing 1.4 million. And much to his credit, Secretary Jones came before the committee, and he said, essentially, the buck stops with me, and I should have been more diligent. Okay? Whether it's 1.4 million this time or in the last administration, 300 million on a road that apparently no shovel of dirt ever got turned on, they happen. I mean, obviously every governor, and the last 4 would be Warner, Kane, McDonald, now Governor McAuliffe. Obviously they hope it doesn't happen on their watch. But as long as we're doing this from time to time, these things are going to happen. They're just going to happen, and that's life. Like I said, I mean, 1.4 million or 350 million, it's public money. And we need to be vigilant, but no matter how vigilant we are, we need to understand if we're going to compete for these companies, and remember, 49 other states are doing what we're doing from time to time, this is going to happen. But I thought one of the things I want to point out, and it's in various senators and delegates' district, but looking at this Microsoft in the Senator Ruff's district and Delegate Wright's district, these are deals that are already gone, that's been in the last 2 years. Microsoft is investing an additional $346 million down in Mecklenburg County. That's going to bring them to over $1 billion in this state. The Stone Brewery in Delegate McClellan and Senator Dance's district, $73 million. $7 million in Senator Stanley's district down in Henry County. And Delegate Adams, I think, is the delegate down there. Senator Miller and Delegate Mason, $152 million from Continental. Monogram Foods, $36 million. Lytle in Arlington County, Senator Evans and Senator Delegate, they wrote down here Delegate Evans and Senator Sullivan. It's reversed. But they've got a $77 million investment. And I could go on. But like I said, the thing that we can't lose sight of is we're in competition with 49 other states. This is going to happen from time to time. And we should take it seriously. It's public money. But I wanted to point out to you that Secretary of Commerce, Maurice Jones, came in there and he said, look, hey, I should have been more diligent. But this isn't the first time. And like I said, in the previous 3 administrations, Warner, Kane, and McDonald, over 69 of those deals that were announced didn't materialize. So we need to keep this in mind. I mean, we need to be as vigilant as anybody else. Questions asked, are fair. How did it come about? But like I said, this isn't the first time. It won't be the last, but we're going to compete. You all need to expect, and hopefully, maybe it'll only be 9 out of 5 every 560. That's not a bad batting average. So my advice to the governor, keep on doing what you're doing because it's paying off. We just need to, make sure we, know a little bit more from time to time about what we're dealing with. But overall, out of 560-some deals, and 9 of them have not come to fruition, not a bad batting average, Mr. President. Thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, I rise for a couple of announcements and less controversial subjects, perhaps.
Senator has the floor.
First of all, just remind members as we move closer towards crossover, it might be comforting to see more iPads being brought to the chambers so that as we get into supplemental calendars that we're in the habit of relying upon them, and the clerk's office can do an electronic distribution of any supplemental calendars or other matters that are distributed. That will expedite the process. Secondly, I would remind the members of Joint Rules that we will be meeting 30 minutes after the adjournment of the House or the Senate, whichever is last, and that will take place on the 6th floor in the Speaker's conference room. And finally, Mr. President, I would like to encourage and employ members of the Senate Republican caucus to please try to be at our normal morning meeting precisely at 11:30 tomorrow. There is an issue of some transparency that I'd like for us to have the opportunity to discuss. I believe the only committee meeting is Senate Finance, which does affect a few of us, but we all know how efficient and expedient that Senator Hanger is, so we will be certain that that is concluded in time for everyone to be down in our meeting room by 11:30. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Buckingham, Senator Garrett.
Mr. President, I rise on a point of personal privilege.
Has the floor.
This is not exactly why I stood up to speak, but it did catch me that the senior senator from Fairfax said that we need to be as diligent as anybody, and I'd submit that if we were as diligent as North Carolina, we wouldn't have lost the $1.4 million. But I digress. Joseph Goebbels, not someone who I'm prone to quoting, is famous for saying that if you tell a big enough lie often enough, sooner or later people will come to believe it. In that same quote, Goebbels went on to say, but truth is the mortal enemy of the lie. So on a point of personal privilege, dated January 18th, score 2 for one armed citizen. A Dayton, Ohio woman has been targeted by criminals multiple times and has used a gun to protect herself twice. The latest incident occurred in September when the 46-year-old fatally shot a man who broke into her home in the wee hours of the morning. At about 3 a.m. one day, she called 911 to report someone tried breaking through her first floor window. Security bars there kept him out. However, the man then climbed to the second story and broke through a number window. The woman hid in the bathroom and shot the intruder when he came in through the door. The wounded man jumped from the second story and fled, but was found dead nearby. The same homeowner also wounded a home invader in 2013. Dayton Daily News, Dayton, Ohio. Mr. President, that's not the only one. Let's see. Dated January 15th. A church employee with the right to carry permit used his gun to scare off an attacker near the Sacred Heart of Jesus Church in Boulder, Colorado. A female parishioner was in the parking lot when her estranged husband confronted her with a knife and said he was going to slit her throat. A church employee walking to his car at the time witnessed the assault, pulled out his handgun, and told the man to leave the woman alone. The estranged husband fled but was later captured by police and faces charges of attempted first-degree murder, first-degree assault, and felony menacing. The woman was taken to a nearby hospital and treated for an abdominal stab wound. No charges will be brought against the armed citizen, the Denver Post. That's dated January 15th. Let's see what else we can find here. Remember what Goebbels said, truth is the mortal enemy to a lie. January 11th. Florida's Stand Your Ground law likely protected a Palm Beach resident who shot 2 intruders who had forced their way into his home. The homeowner returned one night and found criminals inside his residence. They fired on him, and in an exchange of gunfire, the resident killed one intruder and injured the second. The homeowner was not hurt. Here's another one. A Phoenix, Arizona man was forced to use a handgun for defense against a burglar when his initial verbal warnings did not have the required effect. The homeowner, in his 60s, was home alone when he was alerted to the sound of a window breaking. Spotting the intruder attempting to enter the residence through the broken window, the homeowner retrieved his gun and warned the intruder that he was armed. The suspect continued towards him to enter the building and the room in which the resident lived. The resident then fired at the interloper, striking him at least once. The burglar fled down the alley but collapsed a short distance later. That's Phoenix, Arizona. Here's another one. A criminal who just broken into Cincinnati, Ohio home had a rifle pointed at 79-year-old W.P. Henry. But when Henry's 18-year-old granddaughter momentarily distracted the assailant, Henry drew his .38 special chambered revolver from under his pillow and hit the intruder 3 times, putting him into flight. Asked whether he'd continue to sleep with his gun under the pillow, Henry said, "I'll tell you, it's just too dangerous not to." That's from the Cincinnati Enquirer. Mr. President, with the thoughts of Goebbels, tell a big enough lie often enough and people will begin to believe it, continued by his own thoughts that said, truth is the mortal enemy of the lie, I'm happy to have brought you this morning's dose of truth.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Henrico, Senator McEachin.
Mr. President, I rise on a point of personal privilege.
Senator has the floor.
Much to the chagrin of the senator from Fairfax City, it's not more. But, Mr. President, on a serious note, we've had 2 senators now take the floor on points of personal privilege and talk about this administration and the loss of this $1.5 million or so. I note and I understand what a certain delegate from Williamsburg said many, many years ago in the House chamber, that consistency is the hobgoblin, thank you, of small minds. But, Mr. President, I don't recall either one of those senators taking the floor to suggest that the previous administration had done something illegal when it came to the US 460 and not one shovel of dirt being moved and yet hundreds of millions of dollars being spent. Not one time did I hear a point of personal privilege on that issue. And at the risk of correcting the senator, my leader, the senior senator from Fairfax County, I'm advised by the administration that it's not 9 deals that have gone wrong, it is 1 deal that has gone wrong. Mr. President, I thank you for your time, and I would hope that money and ethics will not turn out to be partisan issues in this General Assembly session.
Thank you, Senator. The clerk will please report any announcements on the desk.
Today, Monday, January 25th, the Joint Rules Committee will meet 30 minutes after adjournment of the Senate at the 6th floor Speakers Conference Room. Senators McDougal, Norman, Newman, Ruff, Reeves, Saslaw, and Dance. The Committee on Commerce and Labor will meet 15 minutes after adjournment in Senate Room B. The Committee on General Laws and Technology will meet 45 minutes after adjournment in Senate Room A. The Finance Subcommittee on Health and Human Resources will meet at 4 p.m., 10th floor conference room, Senators Hanger, Howe, Alexander, Barker, and Donovan. The Northern Virginia delegation will meet at 5 p.m. in the 6th floor Speakers Conference Room. Tomorrow, Tuesday, January 26th, the Finance Subcommittee on Economic Development and Natural Resources will meet at 7:30 a.m., 10th floor conference room, Senators Ruff, Saslaw, Wagner, Alexander, and Obenshain. The Education and Health Subcommittee on Health Professions will meet at 8:30 a.m., 4th floor East Conference Room, Senators Garrett, Carrico, Barker, Donovan, Lucas, and Sutherland. The Committee for Finance will meet at 9 a.m. in Senate Room B. The Republican Caucus will meet at 11:30 a.m. in Senate Room 2, and the Democratic Caucus will meet at 11:30 a.m. in Senate Room 1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The senator from Lynchburg, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until 12 noon tomorrow.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until 12 o'clock noon tomorrow? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate stands adjourned until 12 o'clock noon tomorrow.